In this lesson, we're going to have a kind of crash course on some of the commands that you'll want to use through the rest of the course. Bear in mind, you don't have to be an expert with any of these commands yet. Some of these commands will have their own whole lessons or lessons with just a few of them, such as grep, which we'll talk about in a moment. So let's look at some of the most common commands, things you'll use over and over. Cat is the first one. Cat stands for concatenate. And to concatenate is to take a bunch of elements and string them together. So if we cat the auth log is the place where login events are kept. So we can see things that happened around logins on the system. So we're not editing anything, we're just viewing it. And it only went to the screen, so we can only see what's stored in the buffer here. Let's say we just wanted to look at the first few lines of that file. So instead of cat, we would use another command you're going to learn right now called head. So by default, head will show you just the first 10 lines of a file. You can change the number of lines very easily by just typing a dash and a number. What if you want to just look at the last few lines of a file? Then instead of head, you would type tail. And you get the last 10 lines. Again, you can change that with just a dash and a number. So we've got head, cat, and tail to look at the contents of files. Bear in mind, these work on text files. A huge proportion of the files on Linux are text files, but some are binaries. If you try to look at a binary with one of these, here's what you'll get. So it's not designed to look at a binary. It just kind of spits out a bunch of junk. You can see there is some text in there, but yeah, most of it's just this gibberish. So if you ever try to look at a file and you get this, you know it wasn't a text file. So now we know a few things that let us look at what's in a file, a text file. Now we'll talk about navigating a little bit. So if we want to see where we are in a Linux system, some of these commands were covered in a previous lesson. I just want to go over them again quickly so they're all in one place for you. So pwd is print working directory. So it tells you where you are in the system. Because the directory is part of your default prompt, you don't need this command too often, but if you go down several directories, this will get chopped. And you'll have some periods in here and you may not know exactly where you are. You can always use pwd to find out. cd, of course, is change directory. And if you cd to tld, that's the little squiggly line above the backtick, usually near the tab key on the left. It'll take you back to your home directory. It's kind of a shortcut symbol for home directory. And you can see that having the TLD there, we don't really know what directory we're in until we type pwd. That's just for the home directory. Now we'll change directory to var log, and we'll use the next command, ls, which you've used before. It just lists the files in a directory. There are some options you'll often use. I usually just type by habit ls minus alh. It shows us all files in a list format in a human readable form. So it will tell us 475K instead of 45806 bytes. So it puts these in human readable form, so you don't have to start counting zeros on bigger files and trying to figure out if it's kilobytes or megabytes or gigabytes. An alias for ls found on many Linux systems, including Ubuntu, is ll. So ll is like ls minus al because people use that so often, there's a built-in alias for it. So if we do ll minus h, there's a little bit less typing there than ls minus alh. Next command we'll talk about is find. There will be a whole lesson on find, but we'll have a really high-level view of it right now. So find is a really versatile program. It's one of the oldest ones, and it has many, many options. And it's really helpful if you're looking for things. We'll use find in a later lesson to find all the files in the whole system created by a single user pretty quickly and easily. So we'll just page down. You can see this goes on forever. It's many, many options. But in its most basic form, we'll do find from root any file whose name is auth.log. Oh, we should run this as sudo. So there's only one file found on the system with that name. What if we want to find anything with auth in it? Or anything starting with auth? We can use the asterisk as a wildcard. So it'll find us auth.log, authorization, authorized. You can see there are quite a few more files there. And again, we'll learn much more about find in a later lesson. A similar program, but it operates slightly differently, is locate. Locate operates on a database that's updated daily of the names of all the files on your system. So depending on your system, it can be quite a bit faster than find. To make sure your database is up to date though, let's say you've just made some changes or done some updates, you'll want to update your database first. And the command to do that is update db. Oh, sorry, sudo update. Sudo update db. And then we can do a similar thing with locate. So we'll do the same thing. We'll do locate auth.log, and it finds it pretty quickly. For this command, you don't have to put the asterisks for wildcards. If we just search for auth, it'll automatically put the wildcards in front and back. It'll search for anything with auth. So the results are the same as auth asterisk, except it'll find things that end in auth too. Locate is quick and useful, but it's not operating on the actual file system. It's operating on a database of the file system as it saw it whenever that update db command was run. So it's good to get used to using find. Now we're going to learn a command called grep. Grep stands for Global Regular Expression Print. You tell grep what to search for in a directory or file, and it prints all of the lines that have a match. We're going to have a full lesson on grep as well, so please don't worry about being an expert on it right now. But just understand how it works. We'll do grep. Actually, we'll find something to grep for first. We'll have a look at var log and see if there's anything interesting in there that we'd like to find. So let's say we want to find anytime a user has opened a session. That means I've successfully authenticated. So we can grep for opened in, oh, so we got to do sudo. So now it only tells us the lines that have opened in them. Many of them are cron jobs, but others were when I was logging in. We'll learn how we can filter out the ones that we don't want and focus more on the ones we do. And we'll also learn how to chop things down using another command called cut, which we'll go into later. But for now, you can see that you can filter it very quickly and easily with just the grep command. The next command we'll look at is more. More lets you pipe the output from another command and look at it by scrolling up and down. We'll look at the full auth log through more. So to go up, you press U. We're at the top here, so we press D to go down. You can see the file's pretty big, so you can hold the D key and scroll down. A very similar command, I find slightly more usable, is less. Less is supposed to be a souped up version of more. So you can scroll around with just regular arrow keys now. Then one more command is touch. Although touch was originally designed to change file timestamps, for example, you could have a backup program or backup script touch a file so you know that it was changed at that time. It can also be used to just create a file. It creates an empty file. So we make sure we're in our home directory and just making sure I was in my home directory there. And so there's nothing in there. So we touch and we ls, and there's the file 1. You can even make a bunch of files with it at the same time. So we can see those were created just now. So that's a lot to take in one lesson. Please practice each command, navigating around your Ubuntu system and looking at things. If you don't know where to start, var log can be a good place to play around. Make sure you're just viewing though. We'll talk about editing files and file operations like editing, copying, moving, and deleting in upcoming lessons.